We're counting down 35 of the most insane facts about Boston, a city where centuries-old quirks coexist with modern chaos. From streets still shaped by Puritan-era cattle to disasters so bizarre they defy belief, each entry peels back another layer of Boston's wild history, strange laws, haunted landmarks, and engineering feats. Some items will challenge everything you think you know about this so-called city on a hill. Which fact tops them all? Let's dive in, starting with number 35. Boston's downtown streets twist and tangle like a dropped bowl of spaghetti, and it's no accident. The city's oldest roads trace the same unpredictable routes carved out in the 1630s, when Puritan settlers let their cows wander from Boston Common to the waterfront. 4 centuries later, those meandering paths still dictate traffic patterns, leaving drivers and even GPS systems scratching their heads. According to a 2024 congestion study, Boston ranks near the top for traffic snarls, with navigation apps rerouting up to 20% of the time in the historic core. Urban planners joke that Boston is where 17th century cows still win against 21st century technology. Tucked into a wall on a busy downtown street, the Boston Stone looks like a random chunk of granite. But for nearly 150 years, this plain rock served as the city's official 0 point. Surveyors measured every street from its edge until 1822. The stone didn't start out as a mystical artifact. It was a grindstone shipped from England, repurposed as a marker after being moved to its current spot in 1684. Despite TikTok legends about curses and secret portals, ledgers at the Boston Athenaeum confirm its mundane origins. Today, most people walk by without a second glance, never realizing they're passing one of Boston's oldest hidden relics. Boston. Common looks like any city park, picnic blankets, dog walkers, tourists snapping selfies. But beneath those 50 acres lies a story straight out of a Puritan fever dream. In 1634, the city bought this land for grazing cows and, less charmingly, for public executions. The first hanging happened in 1660, when Mary Dyer was put to death for defying the colony's strict religious laws. Over the next 2 centuries, the Common doubled as a militia camp, a protest ground, and a stage for witch trial echoes. Today's peaceful green hides the ghosts of Boston's darkest days. Just steps from the old Gallows Green, Boston Public Garden opened in 1837 as America's first public botanical garden, a lush Victorian experiment in the heart of the city. Instead of cattle and militia drills, the garden offered winding paths, rare plants, and a tranquil lagoon lined with imported willows. By 1877, the famous swan boats began gliding across the water, powered by foot pedals and piloted by generations of Bostonians. The garden's charter called for a living museum of horticulture, and it still delivers, with formal flower beds and blooming tulips each spring. Even today, a ride on the swan boats feels like stepping into a storybook. In 1848, Boston's city leaders put pen to paper and chartered something radical, a public library open to everyone, not just the wealthy. The Boston Public Library opened its doors in 1854, offering free access to books, lectures, and knowledge at a time when most libraries required paid memberships. By 1861, the East Boston branch introduced the idea of a branch library system, bringing books closer to working families across the city. Today, the library's collection has grown to over 2.5 million volumes, filling grand halls and neighborhood shelves alike. Boston didn't just build a library, it built a blueprint for democratizing ideas nationwide. Boston's rush to modernize took a ghoulish turn in 1897 when the city dug America's first subway right beneath Tremont Street. Construction crews braced for mud and rock, but instead hit coffins, lots of them. Colonial graves from the edges of King's Chapel and Granary Burying Ground spilled open, forcing workers to haul away nearly 2,000 skeletons. Engineers logged bones everywhere in their reports, while church leaders protested the disturbance of Revolutionary War dead. The city scrambled to relocate remains with proper rights, but the subway rolled on, laying tracks over ground that once held Boston's earliest residents. Standing watch at the entrance to Boston Harbor, Boston Light has guided sailors since 1716, making it the oldest continuously operating lighthouse in America. Perched on Little Brewster Island, the original beacon warned ships away from deadly shoals long before the United States existed. British forces blew up the first tower during the Revolution, but it was quickly rebuilt in 1783 and kept burning through wars, storms, and centuries of fog. In 1998, the Coast Guard automated its light, but the tower itself still stands, a 90-foot symbol of maritime survival, flashing reassurance to every vessel that Boston's harbor is near. On a mild January afternoon in 1919, Boston's North End was rocked by one of history's weirdest disasters. A massive steel tank holding over 2 million gallons of molasses suddenly burst. In seconds, a roaring brown wave, 25 feet high and moving at 35 miles per hour, tore through the streets, crushing buildings and sweeping people, horses, and carts in its path. 21 people lost their lives, and more than 100 were injured, all trapped or drowned in the sticky flood. Lawsuits revealed the tank's shoddy construction and rushed inspections. Even now, locals swear that on hot summer days, the air still smells faintly sweet. On the night of November 9th, 1872, flames tore through Boston's business district, turning a chilly Saturday into a nightmare. The fire raged for over 12 hours, leaping from building to building and swallowing entire blocks. By dawn, 65 acres had been reduced to smoldering ruins, more than 776 buildings lost, with damages soaring to billions today. Firefighters battled low water pressure and collapsing walls as crowds watched the city's commercial heart crumble. In the aftermath, Boston rewrote its building codes from the ground up, determined never to let a disaster of this scale strike again. Massachusetts law still bans driving with a gorilla or any large ape in the backseat of your car. This legal oddity traces back to the circus era, when a series of animal escapes in the 1920s had lawmakers scrambling for new safety rules. The most famous case involved a runaway elephant in Lynn in 1926, but the statute ended up covering gorillas too, just to be safe. The law remains on the books, even though no one in Boston has ever been ticketed for it. Politicians call it a harmless relic, but it's pure Boston, serious about safety, but with a punchline built in. Happy hour is illegal in Boston. Since 1984, a statewide law has banned time-limited drink specials at bars and restaurants, all in the name of fighting drunk driving. The rule is strict. No 2-for-1 deals, no half-off cocktails after work. Bartenders can't even advertise a discounted pint for an hour. The Massachusetts Alcoholic Beverages Control Commission keeps it enforced, and the result is clear. A night out in Boston costs about 20 to 30% more than in most other cities. According to a 2022 price study, locals joke that the only happy hour is when you finally get your tab. Boats glide along the Charles River, but just above, a train rumbles by. Then cars speed overhead, and jets thunder past in the sky. This is the Boston University Bridge Stack, a 4-layer marvel where water, rails, road, and flight line up in perfect vertical order. The bridge itself dates to 1928, rebuilt in 1997, but the real magic happens when all 4 modes are in motion at once. Engineers never planned it this way. The alignment is pure Boston chance. While local legends claim only a handful of places on Earth pull off this trick, nowhere else does it with such daily drama. 10 massive gleaming eggs rise from Deer Island, each one taller than a 12-story building. These 140-foot high digesters aren't some modern art stunt. They're the workhorses that turned Boston Harbor from an infamous cesspool into one of America's cleanest urban waterways. Inside billions of microbes break down sewage sludge, generating gas and heat as a byproduct. The operation is so efficient that the eggs process up to 1.3 million gallons of waste every day. Pilots use them as landmarks when landing at Logan, and engineers call them the unsung heroes of Boston's environmental comeback. The next time you fly in, those giant EGGs are quietly keeping the harbor blue. A red line of bricks winds for 2.5 miles through Boston, linking the city's most famous revolutionary landmarks. But not every step along the Freedom Trail is just about history. Some say it's a parade route for the dead. 7 stops along the trail double as haunted hotspots, including the Granary Burying Ground, where restless spirits are blamed for flickering streetlights and sudden chills. Ghost tour guides swap stories about spectral soldiers near King's Chapel and eerie whispers at the old State House. Since the trail's creation in 1959, nearly a third of visitors return for the chills, not just the Paul Revere reenactments. In Boston, the past refuses to stay buried. In the early hours after St. Patrick's Day, two men disguised as Boston police officers rang the buzzer at the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum. Inside, night guard Rick A. Bath let them in. Within minutes, the thieves had tied up the guards and roamed the galleries, cutting priceless paintings from their frames. 13 works vanished, including a Vermeer, 3 Rembrandts, and a Manet, worth an estimated $500 million. The FBI's investigation led through mobsters, dead ends, and wild theories, but not a single piece has ever been recovered. Empty frames still hang on the museum's walls, silent reminders of the world's greatest unsolved art heist. Boston has nearly 850 places to eat, but fewer than 50 are fast food chains. Yelp's 2024 restaurant count makes it official. Boston is a fast food desert compared to other big cities. Instead of burger joints on every corner, you'll find indie ramen shops, mom-and-pop pizza counters, and centuries-old taverns squeezed between brownstones. Local foodies swear by the city's stubborn streak. Why settle for a drive-thru when you can grab a lobster roll or a roast beef sandwich from a place older than your grandparents? In Boston, even lunch comes with a side of rebellion against the ordinary. Step through the doors of the Union Oyster House, and you're walking into a living slice of American dining history. Open since 1826, it's the oldest continuously operating restaurant in the United States, a place where the same ledgers have tracked oyster orders for nearly 2 centuries. The menu still features classic New England fare, served in rooms lined with historic memorabilia and dark wooden booths. Upstairs, a corner table is forever linked to John F. Kennedy, who dined there so often it's now marked as his favorite booth. Eating here isn't just about the food, it's about tasting the past, one shucked oyster at a time. In Massachusetts, coffee isn't just a morning ritual, it's practically a civic right. The very first Dunkin' Donuts opened in Quincy in 1948, and since then, Boston has turned the chain into a way of life. There are 1,057 Dunkin' locations across the state, the highest per capita anywhere in America. Locals treat their Dunkin' runs with the same seriousness as paying taxes or voting, and in some neighborhoods, there's a shop on nearly every corner. Ask a Bostonian where to find the nearest Dunkin', and the answer is usually, right here, kid. Around here, coffee isn't fuel, it's blood type. Ask someone in Boston for directions, and you might get a reply like, take a left at the wicked big Dunkin', and park the car in Harvard Yard. That famous dropped R isn't just a stereotype, it's a real linguistic twist. Harvard linguists found that nearly half of Bostonians skip the R sound after vowels, so car and yard sound more like ka and yad. The accent isn't one size fits all either. South Boston, Dorchester, and Cambridge each have their own flavor, and you can often guess someone's zip code just by how they order a lobster roll. It's the city's most recognizable and most imitated calling card. Last call in Boston isn't just a suggestion, it's the law. Thanks to the 1911 Liquor Act and a stack of blue laws, most bars and clubs shut their doors by 2 a.m., sometimes even earlier. Forget about grabbing a nightcap after a late Sox game or stretching out your Saturday with one more round. The city's nightlife winds down while the lights are still bright in other major cities. In 2023, over half of surveyed visitors, 55%, said Boston's early closing time left them surprised or frustrated. For locals, it's just part of the rhythm. Last drink, then straight to bed, whether you're ready or not. Fenway Park's left field wall looms 37 feet above the warning track, a green giant that has taunted hitters and broken hearts since 1912. The green monster isn't just tall, it's a legend, wrapped in patented Fenway green paint and covered in dents from a century of line drives. No other ballpark dares its sluggers with a wall this close and this high. Fans crowd the monster seats for a view found nowhere else in baseball, watching home runs bounce into Lansdowne Street or ricochet back onto the field. The scoreboard is still changed by hand, inning after inning. For Red Sox faithful, the monster is more than a wall. It's a rite of passage, and the backdrop to baseball memories that stretch across generations. Boston doesn't just win, it collects trophies like other cities collect potholes. The Red Sox broke the so-called curse and have 9 World Series banners. The Celtics sit at the top of the NBA with 18 championships. The Bruins have hoisted the Stanley Cup 6 times, and the Patriots' 6 Super Bowl rings turned a region of football cynics into lifelong believers. Since 2000, Boston's 4 major teams have captured 13 titles, more than any other city in America during that stretch. Duck boats roll through the streets so often for parades, they might as well be part of the public transit system. For Bostonians, the phrase City of Champions isn't just a boast, it's a way of life, etched into every corner bar, schoolyard, and family photo. Every April, tens of thousands of runners lace up for a race that's older than the modern Olympics. The Boston Marathon has been pounding the pavement since 1987, making it the world's longest running annual marathon. The course stretches 26.2 miles from Hopkinton to Copley Square, winding through 8 cities and towns, with Heartbreak Hill waiting near the end to test even the toughest competitors. Patriots Day isn't just a holiday in Boston, it's the city's unofficial festival of endurance, with crowds lining the route and college students turning the sidelines into a party. In 2024, more than 30,000 runners from across the globe crossed the starting line, each chasing their own piece of marathon history. Boston doesn't just celebrate champions, it creates them 1 mile at a time. More than 100 colleges and universities cluster in and around Boston, packing the city with one of the densest concentrations of higher education on the planet. Harvard and MIT grab headlines, but they're just 2 names on a sprawling roster that includes everything from art schools to medical giants. Each fall, over 200,000 students flood into the city, filling dorms, coffee shops, and libraries, and giving Boston its unmistakable academic pulse. The education sector isn't just a cultural force, it fuels 12% of the city's entire GDP, according to state economic reports. With so many minds at work in such a small space, Boston earned the nickname the Athens of America, a city where the next big idea might be brewing right across the street. In February 2004, a Harvard sophomore named Mark Zuckerberg launched a website called The Facebook from his cramped Kirkland House dorm room. The idea started as a prank the year before. FaceMash, a hot or not site that crashed into campus servers and landed Zuckerberg in hot water with university officials. But the Facebook caught on immediately, spreading from Harvard to Ivy League schools, then out to the rest of the world. Within a year, the site had 1 million users. Today, Facebook connects more than 2.9 billion people, making it the largest social network on the planet. The company's global headquarters may be in Silicon Valley, but the spark that changed how people connect online was pure Boston brainpower, born in a city where academic rivalry and digital ambition go hand in hand. Boston runs on sneakers as much as it does on coffee. 13% of residents walk to work, more than almost any other major city in America. The city's compact layout makes it possible to cross downtown on foot in about 30 minutes, according to MBTA commuter surveys. Sidewalks fill up with students, office workers, and tourists dodging traffic, all taking advantage of streets built long before cars existed. In 2024, Boston landed near the top of national walk score rankings, beating out cities twice its size for pedestrian friendliness. Most locals skip the car keys and lace up instead, weaving through historic neighborhoods where every corner packs a story. Here, walking isn't just a commute, it's a way of life. Beneath Boston Harbor, drivers disappear into the Ted Williams Tunnel, a feat of engineering that plunges 90 feet below the surface. Stretching 8,448 feet, this underwater highway links downtown to Logan Airport, running deeper than any other road tunnel in North America. Construction crews sank massive steel tubes into a trench dredged from the harbor floor, then sealed and welded them together like a giant metal snake. The tunnel opened in 1995 as part of the Big Dig, swallowing traffic that once choked city streets above. Every day, thousands of cars glide through this hidden conduit, passing under ferries and cargo ships without a hint of daylight. For most, it's just a quick ride to the airport. For engineers, it's Boston's boldest move beneath the waves. Boston's shoreline unspools for 47 miles, wrapping the city in a wild mix of beaches, rocky bluffs, and bustling piers. Out in the harbor, 34 islands dot the water, some crowned with old forts, others home to hiking trails and hidden beaches. Ferries shuttle more than 2 million riders each year, hopping from Long Wharf to islands like Spectacle Island and George's Island, where Civil War prisons and sunbathers share the same ground. On clear days, the skyline rises behind sailboats and cargo ships, while locals escape the city heat by catching a breeze on the harbor. Boston isn't just a city by the water, it's an urban archipelago, with adventure waiting just a short ferry ride away. The Leonard P. Zakim Bunker Hill Bridge slices across the Charles River with 10 lanes of traffic and a profile that looks straight out of a sci-fi movie. Opened in 2003, it stretches 182 feet wide, making it the broadest cable-stayed bridge in the world at the time. Its twin towers soar 270 feet above the water, their white cables fanning out like harp strings and lighting up in blue and gold every night. Designed by architect Miguel Rosales and engineered as part of the Big Dig, the bridge was built to handle Boston's notorious traffic while anchoring the city's modern skyline. The Zakim isn't just a way across the river, it's a symbol of Boston's leap into the 21st century, winning international design awards and turning heads from every angle. Boston's subway system isn't just a way to get around, it's a living, rattling personality test. The Green Line, dating back to 1897, is the oldest and quirkiest, famous for its trolley cars that creak above ground through neighborhoods and screech underground downtown. The Red Line is the city's workhorse, shuttling more than 250,000 riders daily across the Charles River, from leafy Harvard Square to the bustling South Shore. The Blue Line is the airport's unofficial limo, zipping under Boston Harbor with ocean views and a reputation as the prettiest ride. Then there's the Orange Line, connecting north and south, known for its no-nonsense attitude and frequent breakdowns. With more than 1.4 million daily riders, every line has its own vibe. And every Bostonian has an opinion about which one rules and which one ruins your day. In a corner lab at MIT in 1994, Tim Berners-Lee fired up something that would change the world, a computer running the first public web server in the United States. Just a few years after inventing the World Wide Web at CERN, Berners-Lee brought his project to Cambridge, planting digital roots in Boston's tech soil. The MIT Lab for Computer Science became ground zero for early web protocols, hosting the first US mirror of the original European web. At the same time, Project Athena, a campus-wide network, was turning MIT into a living experiment for online collaboration and file sharing. Boston's universities weren't just cranking out code, they were wiring together the backbone of the modern internet. The city's digital fingerprints are everywhere, from the earliest HTML standards to the launch of web browsers that made the internet accessible for millions. In the shadow of Fenway and Faneuil Hall, Boston quietly helped build the network that now connects the globe. Boston Harbor once ranked among the dirtiest urban waterways in America, a dumping ground for centuries of sewage, chemicals, and industrial waste. By the late 1970s, raw sludge poured into the harbor every day, blackening beaches and killing off marine life. The turnaround began with a $4.4 billion engineering gamble, the Deer Island Wastewater Treatment Plant. Completed in 1995, this high-tech fortress processes over 1.3 billion gallons of wastewater daily, stripping out 99% of pollutants before water returns to the bay. EPA reports from 2024 call Boston Harbor the cleanest it's been in generations, with thriving fish stocks and crystal clear swimming spots. What was once a national punchline for pollution is now a point of civic pride. A reminder that even the filthiest legacy can be scrubbed clean with enough science and stubbornness. Deer Island sits at the edge of Boston Harbor, but beneath its modern sewage plant lies a chapter the city rarely mentions. In the late 1840s, as waves of Irish immigrants fled the potato famine, Boston set up a quarantine camp on this wind-blasted spit of land. Between 1847 and 1857, more than 2,000 men, women, and children died here, stranded by disease, hunger, and heartbreak before ever reaching the city itself. For decades, their story faded into rumor, but a 2021 archaeological survey uncovered the truth. Researchers found 15 burial pits, each packed with unmarked coffins, confirming what local families had whispered for generations. Today, the mass graves remain hidden beneath the concrete and grass, a silent legacy of exile and loss. Deer Island's clean harbor comes with a haunting past, one that Boston's skyline can't quite erase. On a freezing night in December 1773, a rowdy band of colonists disguised as Mohawk warriors crept onto 3 ships anchored at Griffin's Wharf. Working with military precision, they cracked open 342 chests and dumped nearly 92,000 pounds of British East India Company tea straight into the harbor. The value? About $1.7 million in today's money, gone in one salty splash. For hours, the harbor swirled with leaves and protest. British officials seethed as news spread across the Atlantic. Parliament hit back with the Intolerable Acts, closing Boston's port and sending redcoats to enforce order. What started as a midnight prank over taxes became the spark that lit the American Revolution. The original wharf is long buried under city streets, but every year, Bostonians reenact the night when a city's anger tipped the world toward revolution, one crate at a time. Boston started as a tiny peninsula, barely 783 acres of dry land surrounded by tidal marshes and muddy flats. Today, the city sprawls across more than 48 square miles, a transformation pulled off by sheer force of will and millions of tons of dirt. In the 19th century, engineers launched one of the largest land reclamation projects in American history. The most ambitious job was Back Bay, where crews hauled in over 2 million cubic yards of gravel from hills miles away, dumping it trainload by trainload into the river's edge. It took more than 30 years to fill just that one neighborhood, turning open water into stately boulevards and brownstone mansions. South End, the seaport, and huge stretches of East Boston all rose from the mud, stitched together by landfill. Walk through these neighborhoods and you're treading on what used to be the bottom of the bay, a city literally built on fill, reshaped by human ambition and an endless supply of dirt. Across all 35 insane Boston facts, one pattern stands out. This city rewrites its own rules, blending centuries of upheaval, invention, and oddity into daily life. Boston isn't just a place where history happened, it's a living experiment in adaptation and contradiction. The bizarre here isn't accidental, it's the DNA of a city that never stops evolving. That's what makes Boston unpredictable and unforgettable. Which fact blew your mind? Drop your thoughts below.